So making a snake can be a little tricky. You're gonna grab about this much clay for a dome this size. Okay. Don't grab a ton of clay. You don't want to make a massive snake. You want to make sure that you wet the surface, get rid of all the crumbly bits. You want to keep this area not soaking wet, but somewhat damp. If you make it soaking wet, the clay will just stick and get stuck. And you want to make sure your hands are damp but not soaking wet. So you're going to squeeze out the snake, make one side thicker than the other. This is very similar to making a pulled handle in the beginning when you're squeezing it out. It will crack apart if your hands are super dry. Okay, so next, it's really important that you roll your clay into the wet surface and out into the dry. And you're gonna fan your hands out while you do it. And I'm gonna apply more pressure right here because I want this to be thinner than this side, but I also do want to stretch this out as well. And if, a lot of times when you're rolling this out, it's gonna wanna square off, and you'll have to gently try to roll it, rock it back and forth in place to get rid of that squared off. And every now and then you want to re-wet your surface. Don't wet your whole board, just wet a small little area. And I'm keeping my hand gently rolling here. I'm not putting a ton of pressure. I'm more putting pressure on my right hand as it rolls out this tail. You always roll the whole snake at the same time. You don't just roll one section unless you're trying to get rid of a squared off section. All right, I feel like it's pretty proportional now. If your snake happens to accidentally have, as you're rolling it out, sometimes a hole will form. Just pull that off, get rid of it, and just smooth this back out. You can cut it off too. You just don't want to create like a big air bubble and close it, pinch it off and create an air bubble. All right, so now I'm gonna take my dome and I'm gonna make sure that my snake is really, really wet. So I'm gonna dunk it in my bucket of water. You want it really soaking wet. And since my dome is pretty leather hard, it's gonna wanna suction itself as soon as this wet clay touches its more dry surface. Make sure your snake head starts right in the middle, about like that, and you can have it perched up some. And then as long as you keep it super wet, it shouldn't crack apart. It may crack a little bit, but it's up to you how it lays out. Also, one step I forgot to do is you're supposed to make a little doorway. So we need to cut out a little doorway right here. You can use an X-Acto blade, which I'll have pulled out for you guys. You're just going to, you can make it into whatever shape you want. You can make a triangle, a flower, just a dome. It's totally up to you what this doorway looks like. It doesn't need to be massive. It just needs to be large enough for oxygen to come through. So do the doorway first before you add the snake on. Be much easier. And it's gonna be a little crumbly, but that's okay, because this is like a rock, and we want it to have really fun texture. So you can just smooth it out using your sponge. You can add little pebbles around it, have a little cobblestone doorway. All right, back to the snake. So you're going to mark off where your snake is gonna lie. So you're just gonna trace around it. Then you're gonna start at the head, and you're going to slip and score generously. Make sure your slip is very wet. It's gonna wanna tear off a little bit, but add a lot of slip, and then score the surface really well. Really scratch it up. And you're gonna just gently press it on there and continue to work your way around. If you do not slip and score very well, when we fire these, the snake will pull away completely off of your mound. It can be a little messy in the beginning, that's totally fine. We're gonna smooth it out with a paintbrush later. All right, next you're gonna take one of these softer paintbrushes, and you're gonna use a lot of water, and you're gonna clean all this up. And the goal is to make sure the snake is actually combined to the mound. So you're gonna really smooth it out, making sure it's really well connected. There cannot be any space that you see through, so no black spaces between the snake and the mound. It needs to be completely secured. So you're gonna go all the way around both sides of the snake. Okay, now it's all smoothed out. It's really well connected. I've pressed it down on there pretty well while maintaining the shape of the snake. Next, I'm going to cut a slit into the snake's mouth. You can use an X-Acto blade, or you can use a feathering knife, either one. So when you cut the mouth, don't do it right in the middle. A snake's mouth is a little further down. Then you're going to pull the mouth apart. And you're going to use wooden tools to like really form the inside of the mouth, make it look realistic as you want. I recommend using the back of a paintbrush for the eyeballs, the socket. So you're gonna push in and open it up on both sides. Then we're gonna do a hole all the way through the mouth into the dome. So push all the way through. And then you're gonna wanna make sure you make sure that opening is very wide and good on the inside. Please make sure your name is on the inside as well, just right up against the wall of your mound. Okay, and now I'm gonna teach you how to make little eyeballs and fangs. So you're gonna just get some clay. Don't get too much. You don't want bulgy cartoon eyes. And I like to put it in a little cup. So I made one little. I'm just gonna roll this out. Cut it in half. That big. I'm also gonna stick it in this cup, and then I'm gonna heat gun it inside the cup and let them get bone dry, both the eyeballs and the fangs. All right, once they're bone dry, what you can do is add some slip to the end of like the tooth, and then it'll suction itself right in to the mouth. And then for the eyeballs, it's the same deal. You just add some slip in there in the little socket, and it'll just suction right in there because these little balls of clay are bone dry. And you're gonna wanna take a soft paintbrush and just clean it up some. Next, let's talk about surface treatments. You can do all kinds of textures. One cool texture we can do is you can make moss or bark. Use the back of a metal rib and just scrape the surface a bunch. And you can make this really cool texture. You could put it all over it, or it could be just like a mushroom. You would slip, score. And make sure it's really well attached. Pull it down. To make a mushroom, you can get a little ball of clay, stick it on the back of a paintbrush, and kind of open it up some. Help pinch it out. Make a little stem. Then you can add slip inside the mushroom cap. Stick it onto this little stem, kind of pinch it on there a little bit. Take a paintbrush and poke a hole into your mound. Kind of open it up some. Add slip generously in there. And then stick your little mushroom right in there. And as long as you attach it well, there shouldn't be any holes. You want to close it off really well. You may want to heat gun this little stem up too before you add it. And for snake textures, it's really up to you. There's all kinds of tools that you can use. You can take this metal one and do varying little scales all around it. One like this. Even this. You can also do added clay, where you make little triangles and maybe slide them on there, smooth them on. Can look dragon-like. And then just do the whole surface, all over, all kinds of textures. Have fun with it. Make sure you keep this covered, well covered the whole time, and cover it really well when you're finished as well. We'll let these dry out slowly. Make sure you clean up after yourselves, and yeah, do a good job.